All right, welcome to my demo video. Now I took the DP-900. It's called the DP-900 Microsoft Azure Data Fundamentals certification, and they had training modules on their site, and I was able to go through module by module and learn about all sorts of fascinating software that Microsoft has to offer. Now, for that certification, some of the things that I was able to learn was there's Azure SQL Database, Azure Database for PostgreSQL, and the Azure Database for MySQL. And that was for what they offer for relational databases. Then as far as non-relational databases, they have Cosmos DB and an Azure storage that they offer. And they also offered in this same certification Azure Synapses Analytics, Azure Stream Analytics, Spark Streaming, Azure Synapses Data Explorer, and Power BI, and all that's for data analytics and visualization. It certainly had a lot to offer, and Microsoft even offers a free trial to all of these services. And they even give you like a $200 credit for anything that isn't offered free, a free trial. I shouldn't say it's completely free. They offer a limited free trial. Then there are some things that they do require some payment, but they give you $200 credit, $200 worth of credit to be able to access all of these things and be able to learn them without spending a single penny. So in this demo, I'm going to specifically do Azure SQL Database, Cosmos DB, and Microsoft Power BI. And I encourage anyone to go onto the Microsoft. There's a Microsoft Learn web page that lists all the different certifications, and there's this certification on there, and they have a module step-by-step instruction on how to study for this exam. It was very helpful, and I encourage anybody who is interested to definitely go and see what Microsoft has to offer, because they certainly have a lot. And let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with our relational databases. All right, we'll start off with the Azure SQL Database. So first we got to set it up. So here we'll go create a resource, and then we'll type in Azure SQL. Here we go. Go ahead and click Create. We're going to come over here, SQL Databases, Single Database, and here click Create. Make sure that your Azure subscription is selected. You'll create a new resource group, and we'll call this Demo SQL. We'll enter a database name. We'll call it AdventureWorks, and we will pick, you can create a new server or use an existing one. I'm going to here create a new one for you, and in the server name, and type a unique name that has not been used before. I will use AdventureWorks. Then here you can use any location, but here the authentication method, you want to make sure that you use SQL authentication here. In the server admin login, you will want to enter your login information. You can choose whatever you'd like, but you'll want to make sure that you remember your password because you'll need it later. And make sure your username and password fill out the requirements. All right, once you got your password and login information entered, go ahead and click OK. We're going to come here and we want to make sure that the no is selected on SQL Elastic Pool. The compute and storage, leave it to be standard. Go ahead and on the backup storage redundancy, do locally redundant backup storage. You're going to go ahead and select next networking. And in the network connectivity method, then you'll go ahead and select public endpoint. Then select yes for both of these options. Make sure that your Enable Microsoft Defender for SQL is selected to Not Now. And then go to Additional Settings. And under here, you're going to use, in the data source here, so you're going to go ahead and make sure that the Use Existing Data is set to Sample. And go ahead and click OK, if there's a pop-up there. And then from here, you can select Review and Create, and then click Create. Go ahead and wait for the deployment to complete here. It might take a little bit, but go ahead and pause the video until the deployment is done. When your deployment is complete, go ahead and click Go to Resource. Then you're going to go ahead and, in this left pane here, click Query Editor, and then sign in using your login information that you just barely created. So we're going to go ahead here, expand these tables. We can see all the tables that we have. Then in our query, first we'll write just a basic select query. We're going to say select, this star asterisk means select all. We're going to select all from, then we're going to type our table name here. And here we'll do sales lt dot product. And if you push tab when this first one here is selected, or to any one using the arrow keys, you can go down or up or down. And I'm going to go ahead and push tab because the top one is the one I want, and I'll insert it in for me. Then I make sure and end it with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go ahead and click run up here. And this will return all the product rows in our table. If we select in here our product table, we'll have listed each of our columns. And here we'll have all of our columns listed, and you have to scroll over to see all of them. But then we could also scroll down and see all the rows that is in our product table. Now we'll replace this select query with something a little more complicated. We'll go select. We're going to just want the product ID, the name, the list price, the product category, ID. Then in the second line, I'll create from our product table. I'm going to push tab to complete that. I end it with a semicolon. Now in SQL, these two lines, the computer registers it as one line of code because this semicolon signifies the end of the command. And so they'll come in and they'll read the first line, they'll see that the semicolon isn't there, so it'll continue the next line to finish the command here. So this should work just fine. So now instead of having all the different column names that we have in our product table over here, then we have just the ones that we named out. Our product ID, our name, our list price, and product category ID. Where queries really come in to be very helpful is when you use the join clause. So here we're going to start out our select query, start a select, and then I'm going to use an abbreviation for our product table, do p.product ID to select product ID from the product table, comma, p.name for the product name, and I'm going to alias that. An alias is essentially renaming something to be something different. And this abbreviation here that I'm using, P, is going to be an alias that we use that I'll name out later on. So I'm going to use product name here, comma, and this alias will use product name for just this attribute here. We are going to use c dot name as category. This alias is the same as the last. Then we'll also use p dot list price. The order that we list them out in the select query up here is going to be the order that they get returned in our output. Okay, so we have all of the columns that we want. Now I'm going to select it from our product table. Type that in, and we'll use our alias to do p. Now when I alias this as p up here, then all of this p.product_id, p.name, p.listprice, the command will know to pull those from the product table specifically. Now I'm going to use a join clause. So join the sales product category table. We'll join our product category table, our product category table as C. Now we have to use a on clause to tell the query where to connect our foreign keys to. Now in the relational database, this is different with a non-relational database. In a relational database, it's made up of tables, made up of columns with rows. There are multiple tables in a relational database, and each row in our relational database needs a foreign key. And here from our previous output, we have a product ID. Now this primary key, this is called a primary key. This primary key is unique for every row. So you could scroll through all of these, and each one of these primary keys is going to be different from the other. Now in relational databases, we also have a foreign key. And here we have our product category ID, which is a foreign key. And as you can see, they can be duplicated when they're a foreign key. And this foreign key goes to our other table, our product category table. And both these top records, record is also another name for a row. So both of these records relate to the same row or the same record in the product category table. So the relationship between the product table and the product category table is what's called a one-to-many. One product category can be assigned to multiple products. And on the flip side, one product can be assigned to only one product category. So a product category can have multiple products assigned to it, but a product can only be assigned to one product category. So now we come back to our on clause. We need to tell the query which keys to join on. Now we'll need to take the primary key from one table and join it to our foreign key on the other table to be able to connect these two tables together. So here we go. We'll go on p dot for the product table. Then we have a product category. ID is equal to the c dot, meaning it's from our product category table because of these aliases, remember. And then we're going to use the same thing, the product category ID. And of course, end it with a semicolon. We're going to go ahead and run this query. And here we have our regular product ID from our product table, our product name, then our category that's from our product category table. And here, so now we have a result from multiple tables, and we're able to see the category of each of these products, and as well as the list price from the product table. If we wanted to get a little more to this query, we could add what's called a where clause, where and here we can add a condition for certain results that we want to return. For example, I can say where our product ID is equal to 771. And if I were to run this query, remember our product ID is a primary key, so it should only return one row. And here we go. Just have one row with a product ID of 771. Here we can do more with the where clause. We can do where we'll pick list price. We're going to say is greater than 1,000. So that now the results that are returned will only return where the list price is greater than 1,000. So we'll go ahead and run that. And as we can see here, all of these list price values will be over 1,000. We could even load more, and all of those will be over 1,000. Now here, if we switch this and say is less than 1,000 and run that, then of course, all of these list price are going to be less than 1,000. If we only wanted to return a certain category, then we could use the where clause for that. So where.cname to pull from our category, product category table, because we only want to return a certain category here. And we have that selected out there. We're going to put it equal to, in single quotes, handlebars. So if we run that query, we only get the rows returned where the category is equal to handlebars. So that's the where clause. Now we can also add other commands, such as order by, and I'm going to do list price. So there's ascending and descending. Here I have selected the ascending and I ran that. And in the ascending order, it's going to start with the lowest here and go all the way up. So start with low and go to high. I can use descending, and that is DESC. And if I run that query, that will return it in the opposite. So the very highest one will be up here, and I'll go to the lowest. And of course, we still have our where clause where it's just returning our handlebars category. And that's the basics in querying. Now, if we want to create our own table, our own tables, and insert our own data, then the way we'd go about that, I'm going to paste in some code that I've had for some other products. It may not be 100% compatible with Azure, but here we go. So here, what we're doing here is first we're searching our current database, and this is our database, our Azure Works 1. We're going to search in this database if there is a building table. So if the building table exists, then it wants to drop it. And the drop command is essentially delete. But in a database, once you delete something, it's irreversible. So this drop command can be very powerful and sometimes very risky, and it is why a lot of times database professionals do not work on a database without a database backup. So then we have our create table here, and we just like create table building, and in parentheses we type our column name here, and then our data type. Now there's int, there's varchar, there's a few different ones. In other SQL commands, you can auto increment the primary key, which under here we make the constraint that the building ID here is our primary key. And we can set that to auto increment other SQL, but that is not compatible with Azure. So I select the building ID, the data type, and then I say not null, which I make it required. Data cannot be put into this table without there being a building ID. Then of course I have that for the other ones as well. There has to be something in each of these columns, and it cannot be null. And null means it's just not there. There's no value there. So we have each of our column names with a comma to separate each new column name. And in the varchar, we can set how long our characters will be. Now, the difference, there's another data type called just char. Now, a char requires it to be exactly that long, so it have to be exactly 45 characters long. But in varchar, it means that it can be from anywhere from 0 to 45 characters. And here in 100, then it's anywhere from 0 to 100. And that's how the varchar works. We have our constraint as our primary key. I went and highlighted this this section of the code to run just that, and I ran to create that table. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh up here and show our tables again. And now we see we have a building table. Great. So I'm going to click down there, and I've got a building ID, building name, and a building address, just like in our code here. And it has our primary key, our data type, and that it's not null in there as well. We can run all these other tables that I have here, but we will not for this example. Okay. Now if we want to insert our own data, let me paste this in. We have this insert into command to load data into our table. And we have our table name that we want it to go to. Then we have our column names listed here, and we have the column names in parentheses, and then values to insert the data that we want in each of them, and then parentheses, comma separated, for the values to be entered in. Now it'll go in the same order here. So this building name is going to get this Mills Group data, and this building address is going to get this address here. So now if we run this, it's going to fail to execute because I didn't have a building ID here. And remember, it's not null, there has to be a building ID. So I'm going to add that there, and I'm going to add an ID of 1. And then we're going to go ahead and run that, and we're going to get a success. So now if we go back and we use a select statement to get all from our buildings, from our building table, end it with a semicolon, and run that, we will see we have one row, and it's the one that we loaded in there. So the code that we use to create our tables are what's referred to as DDL, or data definition language. And it's essentially, it creates the structure of the database. It creates the tables. And then we have what's called our DML, data manipulation language, and that's the commands like the one that we use to put data into our database. And even our queries that we have here is a data manipulation language, and that is relational databases. So we're going to go ahead and close this query editor, and we'll discard any changes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of our relational database, our SQL. We're going to go back home. We're going to go into Cosmo DB, which is a non-relational database platform. So a non-relational database, it is meant to call data quickly, and as well as a wide variety of data. It can be videos, pictures, audio files. They're not set to more characters and numbers like a relational database is. We can store a movie in there, we can store songs. And most social media platforms, even YouTube and Netflix, they use a non-relational database. And it's because you can search and quickly find the things that you need. All right, so we're going to go ahead and here create a resource, and in search here, we are going to type Azure Cosmos DB. Click on that and click create. We're going to go in the Azure Cosmos for NoSQL here, and NoSQL just means not SQL. So it's not the same relational database that we used before. There's our Azure subscription. We'll go ahead and select our resource group, and we can do the same one that we used for our relational database. For your account name, then again, just enter a unique name and use any recommended location, and make sure you use a provision throughout capacity mode. If you are able to apply this free to your discount, then click apply, but I'm not able to, so I'm going to do not apply. And then for this limit total account throughput, make sure that this is left unselected. And then we're going to go ahead and click create and wait for our deployment to complete. So our deployment's in progress, so go ahead and pause the video until the deployment is complete. All right, our deployment is complete. Now we're going to click here, go to resource. on this left pane here, click Data Explorer, and then we are going to click when it pulls up. I'm going to click Launch Quick Start here. Then it's going to pop up this new container page. You can go through the tour if you'd like. So go through and review the default data they have here, and go ahead and click OK. Now, when that's finished loading, and then you'll see in our data, then right here we have our sample container, our sample database. So if it's not already, go ahead and expand this sample database, named sample DB, and make sure that the sample container here is expanded as well. Then you're going to select items here. Each of these items represent an address, and each of them have a unique ID and other properties. So to see these, you can click on any one of them. You can click on any one of them, and you'll see in a JSON format all of its information. Now, a JSON format is where it has these curly braces and commas separated out for each value with a semicolon separating the name of the attribute and then the attribute itself. So here we kind of have some similarities to a relational database where we have an address. This is kind of like the column name, and then we have the address in it, and we have an RD, the attachments and everything. So the other thing that is valuable with a JSON format is we can insert in here and add a second address. So this one record can contain two addresses, whereas in a relational database, we were not able to put a second address in there unless there was a whole nother column for a second address, or we created a whole nother row to enter the second address. And that's part of the power of a JSON format. And when you're working with databases, then there are a few different formats like JSON, there's CSV, and there's a few different ones. Essentially, they're separated in a way that databases can quickly understand and get through the databases can quickly get through that data. You can load large volumes of data very quickly. We're going to go ahead and modify this JSON. We'll backspace this to be something new. So here's the ID. I'm just going to do 1 through 9. And then, see, we need a comma separated. Do comma, and then you're going to do 1 through 9. Do comma, then in parentheses, an address, a colon, and I'm going to type in my address here. We'll do any street, 1 any street. We're going to end that there, and we're going to come up here and click Save. And it'll automatically generate the rest of the attributes for us. And these are other metadata attributes. Now, what metadata is essentially data about the data. So if we remember back to our relational databases, and then we had our column names, our data types, whether it's an int, char, varchar, and that data is metadata because it is data that describes the other data in the database. So we have these other elements here that are the metadata attributes for our non-relational database. We're going to come over up here, and in this new SQL query, we're going to click that, and it automatically generated a select statement for us here. You probably recognize it. And notice we don't need a semicolon here. We're going to go ahead and execute that, and we get all of them. So everything that was in our database there is put down below. So we're going to modify this query here. We're going to select the CID and the C.address from C. And the C represents the particular container that we're in right now. Our current container. Then we'll put in our where clause. We can use a contains. And in parentheses, we'll put the attribute that we want the database to look at. So we'll go ahead and put the address in there. And then in quotes, I'm going to say part of the data that we selected, if I can type it right. So I'm saying select only the ID and the address from this container where it contains in the C address, in the address element, where it has any street. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this query, and we can see it returned just one query, the one we inserted, and it doesn't have the other metadata elements, just our ID and our address. And that's success. Of course, we can come in here if we wanted to and do a specific ID. And this is contains, and so any that contains 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order will be returned. We'll close those elements, and that is non-relational databases. All right, I'm going to include a link in with this video to install Microsoft Power BI. And go ahead and just click that link to install an installer, a setup wizard, and then just go through that setup wizard and to install Power BI desktop on your computer if you'd like to follow along. So go ahead and do that, and then join me afterwards. So you can go through and dismiss the welcome notifications. And here first we have to import the data. So here we're going to click Get Data up here, and we're going to go in from the web. Then I'll pull up a pop-up here for us, and then I'm going to paste this URL, and I will include this URL in with that installer link. So watch for that. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and here we see it. So Power BI formats it really nice for us here, but as far as how CSVs are actually stored is just a comma in between each attribute. So you're going to go ahead and click load there, and then we'll be able to see it pop up here in our fields on the right side once it finishes loading. All right, we got that loaded in. Now we're going to go in and load some more data. So again, through the web, and I'm going to copy in this third link, and I'll include that in as well. We'll go ahead and click OK to get that loaded in. So we'll hit load there, and we have that loaded in. Now we're going to do it one more time, and of course I'll include this link in as well. I'll paste that in there. We'll hit OK and load. Okay, now we have all of our data here in the fields. So I'm going to come over here into the model tab right there, and you'll arrange these tables however you can see them. You can drag and move them however makes most sense to you, however it's going to be easiest for you to access them. There's little enough that you probably be just fine however they are, but when it gets to be a lot of different tables, a lot of different data that you're working with, then it's definitely nice to organize them in a way that you can see it and understand it better. So we're going to go over here, we're going to click revenue to select it. Then here in the properties pane, we're going to go down to format here, general, and we're going to change it from general to currency because our revenue is money. We want that to be our currency. Now we're going to come over and right click this category here. Either right click or click these three dots on the side here. And we're going to do create hierarchy. And this is going to come over here and it's going to create this category hierarchy on the side over there. You should be able to see that even in this products table, it appears down there at the bottom. So we can expand that a little bit so we can see our category hierarchy. We're going to go to the product table again. In our product name, we're going to again right click it and then select add to hierarchy, and we'll select this category hierarchy that we made. Then over here in the fields, we're going to right click, or the three dots of course. Now we're going to right click to rename this, and we'll rename it categorized product. So now on the left side over here, we're going to go over and click data here on the left side. Then the fields pane, we're going to come over here and select customers and open that up. Then we're going to select city here. Then we're going to come over here at the top in the properties section, and in this data category, we're going to change it from uncategorized to a city. That'll make that sure that Power BI here recognizes this column, that these are city names. So we're going to go to the file menu. Next, we're going to go to options and settings, and then we'll go into options. And we're going to go to the security section once that pops up. Okay, security right here. And then you're going to go down and make sure that the map and field map visuals is enabled. So make sure that that is checked. By default, it is not checked. And then you'll go ahead and click OK. So now on the left side here, we're going to go up to report. And this is where we're going to start designing our interface. So we're going to come up to the top here, and we're going to insert a text box. And we're going to go ahead and label it sales report. And then we're going to highlight that, and I'm going to bold this and increase the size. So now we're going to go ahead and select any empty area, just select off the sales report text box. Then in the fields pane, we're going to come over here. We're going to make sure products is expanded, and we're going to click this. We're going to, so in the fields pane over here, we're going to come over to the products table, and then we're going to select this categorized product. And we'll see this automatically generate for us. And we have a table. We'll resize this so that we could see it better. We have our category and our product names. Go ahead and move it up here. Over here in the fields pane, we're going to go over to orders as well. Make sure that this report here is still selected. So the categorized product, as well as the revenue. So we're going to select both of those, and then we'll see this automatically update for us, and we have our revenues. All right, so we're going to make sure that this table here is still selected. When it looks unselected, that's what it looks like. So make sure it's selected. We're going to go over here to the visualizations, and we're going to select this stacked column chart right here. And that's going to convert from graph to a nice bar graph that we can see it all. We'll expand that so that we can see all of it. So above here, we have these arrows right here. And if we click here, we can turn on our drill down. And right now, these are categories. So we have our shorts, road frames, road bikes, they're overall broad categories. So if I have this selected here, I'm going to go over here and select this column here, this road bikes. Sorry. So I'm going to have this turned on here. Drill mode is on. I'm going to click on this column, the road bikes, and it's going to pull up all the different road bikes that were sold. So I drill down into that. Then I can go back up by drilling back up and go back to the categories. And I can even go into touring bikes, and it shows me all the different types. That's the drill down feature, and you can drill back up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the drill down mode off by clicking here again. And I'm going to select off it, so we'll click somewhere, some of the blank area so that it's not selected anymore. And in the fields pane, we're going to select quantity right here in the orders table, as well as the category and the products table. We're going to go back here to the visualizations and click here on pie chart. That'll update for us automatically, and I'm going to move it and resize and move this to be up right next to there. We're going to select a blank area again. Then we're going to go back to the fields pane, and we're going to open up the customer table and select city here. And then go down and select revenue. We can click on this city right here, Union City, and then it'll automatically highlight just the portions that are from Union City. So this much of the road bikes were from Union City. And you can even see the calculated percentage of this 69 here, 3.3% was from Union City. And we could do this for any one of these cities. And you could even highlight and hover over it, and I'll tell you which city it is and its sum of revenue. If you have a city selected, then you can just click on that city again. So we have it selected here. Click it again, and then it will go back to the overarching. We'll go ahead and zoom back there. And that is the power of Power BI. All right, and that is my demo. And that is it. That was a quick summary of Azure SQL Database, Cosmos DB, and Microsoft Power BI. They're all very powerful tools and very useful in the industry. I'd encourage anybody going into a database career to have an understanding of these kind of concepts.